girls.
Hi.
Hello.
Quite a different episode today with the homeschooling. I've got Lauren, who's my children's tutor, and Celia, who also uses Lauren for her children. But let's just start off and say why is it just one of your children you took
my
out
eldest,
school?
yeah.
Yeah, what was the reasons that you went down that route?
Because I felt like, in a nutshell, it was our only option in the end for us. But I think going back to when she was little, she enjoyed preschool, she enjoyed nursery, because it's all play-based, there's no pressure. She was very advanced.
What age have you took her out of school, sorry?
So she finished, I'd like to say she finished in year 6, but she didn't really go in year 6. Yeah. But we never started secondary school. We did apply for a secondary school. She got into a secondary school. I even bought her all the uniform, but in the end I was just like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not putting her through it. It just isn't worth it. I don't care if she's never educated, it's just not worth what it was doing to her. But yeah, I feel like she enjoyed preschool, she enjoyed nursery. She was always very advanced. Like, she was always quite academic. So it wasn't that was holding her back. It was just the way school was.
Yeah.
For her, didn't agree with her. Which I think is so common for children. Whether you struggle with schoolwork. I always struggled at school. I hated school as well, so I kind of knew how it felt. And I feel like, I couldn't really read and spell properly.
Yeah,
so,
I wasn't the best.
Yeah, so I always hated school because I felt like I was being compared to other children. But with her, she was always kind of top of the class, but just couldn't. It was just the school. I can't. I don't know.
Do you know what? I think we should say as well, like, we're not doing this podcast for children to, like mums to watch this and think, right, that's it, my child's got to be out of school. Like, definitely not. This is more just for the children that are struggling in school.
It's an option.
And it's an option for them. Yeah. And I think a lot of mums at the minute, they're struggling, so they don't know what to do for the best. And also, it is a big thing to do to take, like, I was really nervous taking my children out of school.
It's so scary. Like, I feel like when coming to that point when I was making that decision, so she struggled, say, all the way through school. Maybe I would say reception, when it started getting to like the proper.
Yeah. Like the routine, or just like
going in school, separating. It never felt natural to me, even from her being young, that she was going to school for that many hours away from me.
Yeah.
That was, to me, I know like a lot of other people and mums, parents don't feel that way, but I did. And I feel like it didn't agree with us.
So it is how the child is, isn't it?
100%.
Like,
100%.
Every child's different. Yeah. And I don't think that every child, like, school is for every child.
No, because my other two, the baby's still a baby, but the other two, my 3-year-old's asking me to put her uniform on every day.
Yeah.
And Denny is running out the door every morning. So I don't feel like they're the same as Honey. Yeah, but I'd say, so going back to Honey, and I didn't know that, I didn't have any other option, but she had to go to school.
Yeah.
She had to go. I was constantly watching her attendance because she was constantly ill. There was always a problem with her. And just total mum guilt. Some days I weren't sending her. I just had the school on my case constantly about her attendance. Then obviously her work started to decline because she couldn't relax in school. She couldn't focus because she was so, I don't know what the word would be. What would the word be? She was so...
I think she just was never comfortable in the school
never
environment.
Comfortable. She could never settle. So then she could never really work because she's just totally on edge all the time. And then I think we got to about year 5 and she come home obviously we went through lockdown. We went back in year 5 and I was like, she started crying one day and I was like, nah, we're not going back to school.
I think lockdown allowed a lot of people to see that home education is possible.
Yeah, totally and utterly
Definitely.
opened my eyes to a whole nother world.
And a lot of people from their own experiences of having a bad experience at school or not enjoying school
Yeah,
think that I suppose they hold like a preconception then on learning and school. But I think what we have to remember is that's our children's childhood.
yeah.
Yeah.
So like in your case, Cecelia, you saw that it wasn't right for her and you
No.
knew that you had to act. And
Yeah.
sometimes that's coming away from the difference.
Yeah, I feel like school, because it's 5 days of the week and then we had the weekend, she was never like fully recuperating on the weekend. Before you knew it, she was back to school. And I just feel like everything in her nervous system, she just wasn't who she was meant to be, like in her personality, because school was dominating her life.
Yeah.
And then like you'd get to the 6 weeks and she'd kind of get in the flow of being not at school and you would see a difference in her. And then we go back to school again and we were all up in the air.
Lauren, in your experience, what sort, like your children that you've got,
Yeah.
what sort of, like, how are they? Are they all quite like shy and things like that? Like,
It varies. Every
it all,
child
is
is
every
different.
child different that you've got coming to you? Yeah.
And I think that's what's really hard in schools is obviously I've worked in schools, I've been a deputy head teacher, I've worked in a variety of schools. It's the way that schools are delivered, they are government run. It is a one size fits all approach. And you can have, I mean, I've got 3 children myself. And when I look at each of my 3 children, they're so different.
Yeah.
I know, but I've been that teacher in a classroom that's got 10 times that amount of children with their own differences. I think when you jump over into the home education side of things, that's when you realise, I suppose, how open you can be with education and how you can bring out the best in children. And I've had children, many children that I've started tutoring, and they won't make eye contact with me, they won't smile, they won't laugh at my jokes. I don't take any of that personal, but I know that within time is a healer, and building that relationship with them, I think that's what they need. That's what our teachers aren't doing. They're too restricted to do that with 30 children in a class.
Yeah.
And I
It's
think
too
it's important
much.
to say as well, it's not the teachers. Like I feel like at the end of Honey's primary school experience, the teachers were so good.
Yeah.
Like the teachers really tried for her, but there's only so much they can do. They're up against the brick wall. Like they've not got the resources. There's not enough of them. There's too many children for them to, really figure out and help a child individually.
Yeah.
I think the other problem is as well for having been a teacher is that you're up against the needs of your children versus what your school wants.
Yeah.
So their end of year data, all of the information that's published that goes into an Ofsted report. And there was a little while that teacher pay was performance related. So you're thriving to get into your promotion and move up in the ladder. And sometimes that makes teachers forget the actual everything that's important that underlays, like relationships and listening to our children and respecting their views and just open discussions, reading to children, because you run out of time to do those things that are so important.
Yeah. And I feel like then if the teacher is under pressure, that's obviously going to come off in the classroom, which is then going to make the children unhappy. Then they're unhappy. They're not going to learn. They're not going to thrive in that kind of situation.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a huge problem as well, like in the United Kingdom, with getting teachers and keeping them. So retention of teaching staff, because it's a hard environment to work in.
Yeah.
There's the constant pressures. And like I say, if you're in a 2-form entry school, great. You've got a teacher that's a year group partner, but you're racing for a curriculum that you need to cover because that's what you're told to do.
Yeah.
9 times out of 10, every subject that you will do or every part of maths that you'll do, there's a handful of children that haven't got that, but you've got to move on because the clock is ticking.
Yeah, they haven't got the time.
That's it. And I think that's the difference
So
with
sad.
home education, is that you can stick on a unit for as long as you need to, so that you can embed it. You can make it real life. You can answer questions. You can explore it. You can see it. You can feel it. There's not that opportunity in a mainstream
And then
classroom.
what happens if a child has a day off because they're throwing up?
Yeah.
Or because they've, I don't know, whatever reason, they've got time off and they've missed that. It's so stressful. Like it's just a stressful environment.
Yeah, definitely. With the fines and that now that they're giving out for your child to be taken out of school, like that is a lot. I feel like people are waking up now to that, and they're sort of standing up and saying like, why can't I take my child out? Like, life is too short to
100%.
to not go anywhere, not do anything. For me, definitely, like I have always took my children out of school term time, but I know mums nowadays that they're so scared to do it because of the fines. But yeah, I feel like it's up to you. Like,
I
whatever
think
you
it's
do.
a shame that children would miss out on that opportunity of like learning and experience another country and its culture,
100%.
food, currency, all of those things that become life skills. And actually, obviously, a separate issue is the holiday industry that hike the prices up so high
Yeah.
that families suffer.
But I feel like children going on holiday, like, I mean, you can say, oh, they can go on holiday in the holidays. It's not the same because most people can't afford that.
No.
But without giving them a lesson on holiday, they're exposed to so much more than what they are in everyday, like the same repetitive routine,
Yeah.
the same everything. They're exposed to so much, like you're opening their minds. Like, I don't want to come across like I'm being too, I don't know, but yeah, it's so important to like broaden a child's horizons, like to make them.
There's more to life than
There's
sitting
so
in
much
a
more to
classroom
life, 100%.
every single day.
100%. And I think this is what, like, I feel like COVID opened my eyes to so much, like in every way.
And why was they allowed all that time off school for that?
Yeah,
But
they can't
you
go on
can't
holiday.
take your child out of school for a week to go to a nice place and show them good things. Like that's what I do not understand. And I think that is when people did start to sort of be
Yeah,
like,
I think a lot of people.
wake up.
I think there still is a lot of people that just won't come away from that. I don't know how you say it, but like that way of life.
Do you find like when you tell people that your children are homeschooled, like people have got an opinion?
Yeah. They're like, how do they socialise?
Yeah, that is
Number
the main
one
question that they ask. How do they socialise?
And I'm like, really?
See, for me, it's a lot better. I mainly make the decision to not send my secondary school because I am so worried about who they're mixing with.
Oh, 100%.
And I know to some mums, they must think like you can't control who your children mix with, but I generally can control who my children mix with. And until they're at that age that they
when you really can't control
make
it.
their own decisions, from young, I want my children mixing with children that I feel like is a good influence.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because a lot of children are exposed to certain things that my children are not, and I don't want them knowing certain things. Like in school, mine don't learn about sex education or any of that.
Huge one at the moment.
What do they call it at school? It's
relationship and sex education. So it's RSA now.
Okay. Yeah, mine do not learn about that, and they're taken into another classroom.
Yeah.
And people can say like, you know, like why are you doing that? They need to learn about that sort of things. And for me, at a young age, they do not need to learn about that.
No.
They do not need to learn about the gender thing. Like 100%. I will keep my children as innocent as I can for as long as I can.
And anything they need to know about relationships, they're naturally learning anyway.
Yeah.
So why is so much pushed on about making relationships? When you make relationships every day, you're in a family, you're at school, what more do they want from a child?
I just think everyone's so different. Like my children, I do not let them watch normal, you know, like telly, like, I don't know, like couples kissing, sexual things. My children are not allowed to watch things like that.
You're protecting their childhood is 100%. What you're doing.
Yeah.
But you've got children that are exposed to things like that. And I would rather keep my children mixing with the same sort of children that how we bring them up. And that's that. And I feel like secondary school, that is when you haven't got that control with them.
Yeah,
the curriculum around relationships and sex education in secondary school as well. So like the previous government, the Conservatives, they wanted that reviewed, but Labour have now said that they're not going to review it. They don't think it's appropriate. They don't think that it's a problem. Yeah. But you've got things like topics in there that personally I don't think need covering, like gender realignment.
No.
Why do we need to? If a child is at school and lucky enough to have a really good relationship with a teacher that influences that child, which is what we all hope for, why do they need somebody to stand up in front of them and say, you know, you're a girl, but if you wanted to be a boy, and plant that seed into their head?
Yeah. No, yeah. I mean, when we was younger, how many tomboys was there? Like, my sister literally every day wanted to wear an Arsenal kit.
Don't mean she wants to be a boy.
I mean,
it don't.
we're so girly. But she played rugby,
Yeah.
like tag rugby. She loved it. But
I think
that doesn't mean she
children,
wanted to be a boy.
It just confuses
That
them.
was just childhood. Like, she just wanted to play.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I wasn't like that. I was just, wanted to be in, I think, anything glitter, and I was just like that. But yeah, she was like, I would say, a definition of a tomboy. But no one, she was a girl. No one mentioned anything about, back then in the 90s, no one mentioned anything about changing sex. And if, like, obviously, I'm not against it. Like, it's so tricky. It's so tricky to say
want to do,
because if that happens to you, and it really happens that one of your children are not comfortable with the body that they're born in, you will deal with it.
Yeah.
That will be dealt with but it will be dealt with how your family decides to deal with it. Why do we need to push it on the whole of the school? Like, I don't understand why the whole classroom's got it. I don't understand what that's got to do with everybody.
And that's where I think that it comes back down to, like you say, parental views and the way that your family would choose to address that, rather than that seed being planted and then a child feel that they're more or less supported, because that could go either way within a school environment.
Yeah, see, I feel like I'm maybe a little bit different. I'm very open, and there's always kind of, especially with Honey, she's always been above the years that she is. And if she asks me, she openly asks me things, and I will tell her.
Yeah.
About anything, but that is in the way that I decide to tell her how I see appropriate. Can't say it, but anyway, and I feel like she also knows that them things are private, and she don't go around. We're just not like that. We're quite like, it's private, isn't it? When you're talking about certain things, or when it comes down to drugs or anything like that, and they ask questions. I decide, or me and my husband decide, how we tell them, and
definitely.
not a load of kids at a secondary school that haven't really got an idea what they're talking about.
Or teachers, which sounds really bad, like I'm slating teachers, and that's not how I mean to come across, but teachers, because they are told that that's what they need to cover.
100%, yeah.
Did you see that video of that teacher saying that, something to do with identifying as a cat, and they was
oh my God, and the girl,
the little girl.
There's a lot of that going around at the moment that you just...
See, I'm quite lucky with my girls' primary school. They are really, really good and supportive, and they know straight away I get a phone call if they're learning about anything and they're not sure that they would want my child to be learning about. They always ring me, and I think that's really good.
That is good, yeah. I feel like my schools, like their primary school's really good. I mean, at the moment, my boy's only in there. But when it come to about, what do you say it's called? RSE. They sent, and it was really small in the newsletter. And me being me, I picked it out, and then I sent it in the little group chat of us mums, and I'm like, have you noticed that these are learning that? And they're like, no, I didn't notice. So I'm like sending an email if I want to know how it's being taught, what's being said, and when it comes to the gender thing, I was like, no, it's not necessary.
Do you know what, the only good point because obviously there's a few of us mums at the school, they don't let the children learn about that sort of stuff. But when one of the mums actually put it to one of the teachers, and they said, like, why do our children need to be learning about this? There was actually the teacher turned around and said, from that little, it was like an assembly they done on it. From that assembly, there was like 4 children come forward and said that they was abused from that assembly.
No way.
Yeah, so I see that side to
course,
it,
yeah.
of them children that are, that's what I mean, abused or exposed to things like that. But my children are not.
Yeah.
So I want to protect their innocence for as long as I can.
Yeah.
And when it comes to one day and I've got to have the conversation with them, of course I will.
Yeah.
I think... Sorry, go on.
No, go on, yeah.
I think, like, in relation to the safeguarding, that's really important, but also the other thing that has to be considered, and why I do see it as being important within the curriculum, is that not all children are as fortunate as our children, that we have that relationship and that confidence and that knowledge to make decisions for them. Some parents would squirm at the thought of having to talk through relationships or not feel comfortable with it for whatever their reasons should be.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. And like in terms of the safeguarding, I do think it's important for that. But I do feel that it's not always age appropriate for our children, what they are being taught.
It is like, is it year 3 now that they're learning about it? Or
Well,
year 2
depending
or
what,
year 3?
yeah, depending.
I feel like it was younger.
I think it depends on what sort of program of learning that the school will be following. But like a lot of schools, they will start in year 1 and it will begin with like healthy relationships and like who you should kiss and who you shouldn't kiss. And
Which I do get that, because obviously you do want to implement on children, like, don't talk to strangers. You don't have to do this. If someone asks you, like if an adult that you're not comfortable with, that should all be addressed. I think with it, by anyone that's safeguarding children, but I think there's just a line that's crossed.
Yeah, there is, definitely.
Yeah.
And when it comes to curriculum, there's lots of things that I know that I work on daily that are very backdated because of the national curriculum being published in 2014. We are in a world now that when our children go to work, we don't know what jobs they're going to be going on to.
Yeah.
And, you know, you've got like the development of AI, ChatGPT. Now ChatGPT can make your logos for your business and all sorts of things.
Yeah.
It's going to wipe out lots and lots of jobs. So what we need is for our children to be resilient and current. And that's why I would support home education for that reason, because it gives you that option to be able to do it. You're not stuck doing an hour of English and 3 hours of maths a week. And
obviously, Lauren, when I had you like with Sienna and you was teaching her like money and things like that, like actual things that I want my children to be learning about. Like back when I went to school, I can honestly say there's not really a lot that I actually like. If you said to me now, what did you actually learn about? I feel like other than obviously I can read, I can write, a lot of the stuff, what do you need it for?
Yeah. I think a lot of the curriculum, I mean, this sounds really drastic and I probably sound like a nutcase, but before I pulled Honey out, I did go through most of the curriculum because I did think to myself, oh, we won't need a lot of it.
Yeah.
But I did, when I went through it, I did think, oh, actually, there's quite a bit that I'd like to touch on just for her to, not to like fully in depth learn about, but just to go over. So she's just kind of got that knowledge and common sense when it comes to like having discussions with people. But yeah, I just feel like it's not that important.
No.
Like it's not the be all and end all what they're trying to make kids sit down.
They're so bothered about their school uniform and being on time. Like I was getting phone calls every day over Sienna, like, oh, she's got fake nails on. Like, I think it was her birthday, I let her have fake nails on.
Yeah.
Come and pick her up, like, right now. And I was like, I'm not coming to pick her up. Anyway,
It's so ridiculous.
So I literally answer the phone, like, have you got anything better to do than ring me today? Like, please leave me alone, because I just got the sick of it. But they would put her in isolation every day, literally staring at a wall every day. And she said, Mum, they didn't even let me go for lunch or nothing.
Honestly,
she weren't learning anything.
What they done, like when I think about it now, like I was in seclusion a few times when I was younger over the most like
silly things,
stupidest things. Like that's torture. Like if they done that to I know loads of people are going to go totally against me and say that no, children need to be, obviously there needs to be rules, because otherwise we'd have absolute outrage everywhere. But yeah, what they done and the reasons why they put me in seclusion, sitting in that like little.
But that was years ago. Like things weren't as bad as they are now.
Honestly, like it is disgusting. I think like what they done to
it's literally like a prison now. I think,
literally.
like to me, like
I
my
feel
children
like
don't go. They will not go secondary school unless I really think that they want to go. They're doing really well at school. Then I will send them. But other than that. And anyway, I've had so many messages lately over the homeschooling and their children's really struggling, like a lot of messages. And I just think, like, you've got to make that decision. It's got to work for you. It is, because people say about the money side of it, Lauren, like it is doable. You haven't got to spend loads of money doing it, have you? Like,
No, I don't think you've got to spend lots of money. I think if you want to give your child a high quality education through home education, I think that you need to be able to invest the time. And if you
Yeah.
can't invest the time,
Yeah.
then you need to be able to financially invest to make up for the time
Yeah.
that you can't invest.
But we were
Yeah.
saying this, wasn't we? Like, you can't just pull your kid out of school and not push it. You have to have some form of way of educating them. You can't just let them slip through the net and not do anything with them. It's not an easy choice, and there is a cost there, but it doesn't have to be extravagant.
No.
And there is ways of going around it and being able to do it.
And I think it's about holding the flexibility. So like
Yeah.
all of the families that I work with, if things aren't working, we say, right, that's not working. Let's change. Let's switch things up a little bit. And I really pride myself on being able to have those open conversations with the learner, so the child themselves, the children. Obviously, it's harder the younger they are, but it's much easier with the older children, but also the parents, because we are a partnership. So it's important if they feel like something isn't working, that they can feed that back, and vice versa, that I can be open and honest and say, actually, I know you said that you've wanted them to look at X, Y, and Z, but I don't feel like it's appropriate. I don't feel like the child's interested.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's got that link for them.
But I think that's the whole the whole vibe of home ed. It's kind of relaxed, flexible.
Yeah.
You haven't got to be at the same place where everybody else in your year group is, because you can be behind at 7. And by the time you're 9, you're in front of everybody.
Yeah.
Children learn, their brains develop differently, and I just believe children will be what they're meant to be, and they will, when they're ready to learn, they will learn. Like, my boy goes to school, he's only there for the social, because he literally runs out the door, he loves it. And if I pulled him out of school and educated him at home, I can guarantee he would probably be more academic. He would probably be more knowledgeable, but he loves school, and he's not interested in learning. So I think it's like we say, go back to every child is different.
It's not for every child.
Mm-hmm.
So Lauren, if someone was looking to homeschool their child, like, what are the steps that they need to take?
So I think, obviously, on a very personal level, to make sure that you're comfortable with the decision that you're making, or you're talking to people if you're not. A supportive family, I think, is really important, because it is hard when people say, oh, you home educate, and they've got this view because they're stuck in those times. Yeah. But all that actually needs to be done is a letter is written to the head teacher saying that you wish to deregister your child from school. They may offer you a meeting. It's not compulsory that you attend that meeting. Some parents go and say their part and are happy with that. You don't have to. Once your child is deregistered, the local education authority will make contact with you, it varies how long it takes, but generally they will check in annually, and they will either do a phone call, ask you to complete forms, a report, or a visit. You don't have to have them visit if you don't want them to visit you, but you do have to prove that you are providing your child with an appropriate education. So for some parents, I will write reports about the lessons that we do and the things that I know that they do outside of our lessons, that I suppose tell a little bit of a story about them in their last year. Not all parents choose to do that way. Some parents rather have the visit, get the visit done, and that's it. But it's not a daunting thing, I don't think. The idea as a whole is.
You think it is at the time. It was quite easy for me, because obviously with Sienna, I could take her to work with me. So when I was going to do makeup, she'll be coming with me, she'll be helping me, and the hair, she'll come and help me. But I suppose if you're in that job that you can't take your child to work with you, or you haven't got the time to be with them, that is that's another thing that they've got to consider, I suppose.
And that's where I think, like, the support from family is really important, because if you've got your family on board with you from the beginning, it's likely that they'll stay on board with you. But if you've got to navigate through those initial few months of home educating and balancing a job, or, you know, whatever other family pressures that you have, that's when I think it can become quite difficult. And when people take their children out of school, they often de-school. So they will have like a period of time where they don't really do much that's educational to like rest, recuperate, find their feet. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just important that obviously if that is the way that you approach things, that you have a plan moving forward, because before you know it, the local education authority will be wanting that information. And if you can't give them the information, they will sit on your back.
Is that when they're on your back more, I suppose? Yeah.
And that's because the children are entitled to an education.
Yeah.
It's down to you how you deliver and facilitate that education, but it's that protection.
Yeah.
And I do see as well, I wonder if in time to come, whether that will become more intrusive.
Yeah, I feel like it's getting there.
There's obviously a higher number of families that are choosing to home educate.
I feel like the more people that do it,
the
more they're going to be on it.
There's also been like a recent story in the news, which I don't really watch the news, but there was a safeguarding, like a serious case review because a child lost her life.
Yeah.
Because she was deregistered from the education system and she wasn't seen, and sadly it resulted in her death.
But I think they're trying to say, about homeschooling and then not being, like, I suppose, regulated. But they missed signs when she was at school.
Yeah.
100%.
So
it's still
that's here nor there.
Yeah.
That's true.
And you get children that lose their lives or are abused for a long period of time whilst they are in school.
While they're at school. And how they don't pick things up.
Yeah. There's too many kids. There's too many kids for them to be able to. How can you, a teacher, be, I don't know, what's the maximum of a class, like 32?
32.
How are you picking up all their mental well-being while trying to push through for them to pass their SATs, or I don't know what else, trying to get them ready for their GCSEs? You can't be worried about how they're getting bullied. I mean, you should be. I'm not saying you shouldn't be, but you can't do everything.
I think primary schools tend to do a better job of that, of being able to, because a teacher is with their class the whole day for 4.5 days
Teenagers
a week.
are hiding it better.
Secondary school, I think it is definitely more difficult to do so.
Yeah. But going back to what you were saying about deregistering, when you are doing that, it's absolutely terrifying. Like, I literally feel like I didn't sleep for months trying to make that decision. No, it was awful. And I remember thinking, like, because not everyone was kind of with me. They didn't.
Yeah.
That no one.
I remember, like, my family, like, they was like, why would you take them out of school?
Yeah, they need school. Everyone's just like set that this is the way we are.
They still have a bit of an opinion on it now.
Yeah, people still go, like, is she ready to go back to school? No.
Yeah.
She's not going to school. But yeah, no.
I must say, there is a downside to it as well. Like, obviously, my son, he does go with his dad most days, but there's days that he doesn't go with his dad and he is sat at home on the PlayStation, and me and him will have rows over it because I'm like, you're not just sitting there. So there's definitely, you've got to do what works for you. And I am lucky 100%. That he can go with his dad most days. And then if you've got a child that they can't go work with you or can't go work with their dad, you've got that side to it.
I think that's where you've got to, like, look at the whole picture of you as a family, because I think the pressure that it just puts on a family, having just from finances, like finding the extra money to do things with your kids, for the pressure of having them around all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I don't go to work, but having Honey at home, 13, with her hormones, is wild. And I mean, I would have all 4 of them at home with me all the time, but it is hard. And I think I do have quite relatively good support.
Yeah.
I mean, like I say, they'd say, is she going to go to school now? I think she'd be all right going to school. And I'm like, it's not that she might be. I think she would be all right going to school, like, mentally. But I just think, like, I'd rather keep her at home.
Yeah, I do. I think it's how the child is. Like, if the child is struggling, and, like, I've got a friend and her son, she's messaged me a few times, her son is really struggling and he's actually really clever. He gets on really well at school. Yeah. But where he's not mixing with other children, like, he's not mixing with other children. Too much pressure. He can't concentrate in school.
100%, it's awful.
So she's a bit, like, stuck at what to do. And, like, I just said to her, like, if he wants to come out of school, like, at least you could try him and see, like, try, because with the groups that you do, Lauren, like, they're still mixing with other children, aren't they?
Yeah, that's it.
And am I right in saying that there is like home ed groups in every town? There is there or not?
There's lots around, isn't there?
I think especially in our area, we're quite fortunate. Like, there's a lot that goes on. I mean, to be honest, I was absolutely mind blown. I was like, didn't even know. Like, go back to 2020, 2021. Honey was in year 5 when I was like, no, just leave school. We did end up sending her back because the school was so good with her, and, you know, we went in and out and whatever. But when I actually fully got invested into it and like looked, it's amazing. And the things that are out there, like even Gravity do like cheap prices for your kids to go, like just to socialise.
Yeah, that's good.
The groups out there where, like, for example, Lauren, they go to groups, you can leave them for a couple of hours, they're mixing, they're learning. And
I think a lot of people don't know about that, though.
There's so much that you don't know.
They can actually send their child to somewhere for a couple of hours, pick them up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And they're still getting that education.
100%. And I feel like they're much smaller little groups where they're thriving, they're happy, the pressure's off.
Yeah.
You can learn in a different way. It's not just by the curriculum. A lot of people don't follow the curriculum. They have their own thing going on, and they just, I think, as long as you're providing, like going back to the council, I think as long as you're providing evidence to say that this is what we're doing, like I was very open, like straight away I was like, no. And they do try to scare you. They was like to me, oh, you're fully aware that when you take your child out of school, you are getting no support. And I was like, yeah. I done it and it was fine. It's the best thing I ever done for her. And obviously for me, like her being in school was hell. And then making that decision to pull her out, I didn't know whether I was going left, right, what I was doing, whether I was right, I was wrong. I was right, 100%. And everyone that said to me, don't do it, why would you do that? They was wrong, like totally wrong.
Yeah.
I think as well, like thinking about Honey specifically,
Yeah,
she's grown so much
Oh
over
my God,
time. Obviously,
yeah.
I worked with Honey while she was in school.
Yeah, for me.
And so I've known Honey for a long time, and now I feel like
She's a completely different kid, isn't she?
yeah, and she just takes so much ownership over what she does. Like if I set her a piece of homework, which I don't do religiously, but I'm like, oh, look at this. She's like, oh, I did it. And she sends me like, she'll WhatsApp me her work and things like that. And I think it's so lovely that she wants to.
Yeah.
That's not every time.
And she's
that's not
got
all the
like that.
time.
She's like, it can be formal, but it's also kind of informal where she can have like banter with you.
Yeah.
Where it's like that closeness of a, like education, but she's just can be herself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's lovely. Like she's so much more confident. Like now she goes to Blue with her friends. Like obviously I'm dropping her off and picking her up, but she's got like, she's constantly socialising. She's got friends like that she's going out with. She's just a normal teenage girl.
Yeah.
She's not stuck in her bedroom like everyone thinks she is, like just reading a book.
Yeah.
She's going out. She's goes sleepovers, birthday parties, like
Theatre trips.
Yeah, everything. Like she does everything. Yeah, and we got all the socialising from the home ed. Like we got a nice little group, and what they've done, how they've learnt to be, just from mixing and being in a normal real life situations every day. They're so much more confident. They're so much more able to cope with life.
Yeah.
And like everyday situations. Like I can't even think of one.
I think something that I know that we've spoken about and I know that you've spoken about is like that natural gravitation for relationships.
100%.
So like meeting people that they want to be friends with, that they're intrigued about, that they, you know, they see qualities in that person that they like, rather than being in a classroom, going to English and having to sit next to Dom because that's on the seating plan and having to tolerate him because
and he's
that's
like
respect.
flicking his pencil or something and you're trying to concentrate and or you want to have a laugh and you can't because you're not in the mood to learn.
Yeah.
That happens. That's real life. That's real. They're children. They can't be just switched on when you tell them to be.
So true.
And it's hard, especially for boys. I think boys even more so. They need to kick a ball. They need to get up and down. They need to have a break between learning. And I feel like even children that really, really, really didn't really cope well at school, learning now is so much better for them, isn't it? Like they can just learn at their own pace, interests. They're in, like learn around their interests. Like you can, I was saying it earlier, like you can literally be talking about a fish and you can learn somehow, you can bring in maths, English, geography, history, science. Like you can talk about dinosaurs and you will find a way that your child then they just, because I feel like humans naturally want to learn. It doesn't have to be in a classroom.
So true.
It doesn't have to be forced on them either. So the amount of children that I work with that will be you know, in their classroom setting, in their bedroom, in their front room, wherever it
Yeah.
is, some days they're just not feeling it and they need to be able to
Like
go.
us adults though, like
100%.
we all have
Like,
times
this
like
is what
that.
I mean. And I feel like I make it, like, it's really strict. Honey's up, get dressed, get in the shower, like, do your hair, like, make sure you're presentable. Like,
Yeah.
this is important. Make your bed. Like, even Denny, people think I'm mad, but like, he's just turned 9. I still make him make his bed most mornings.
Yeah, it's good though.
Yeah, I'm like, make your bed. I'm telling them, puff the cushions up. Like, I like them to be like a certain way. But on them days when they can't, I'm just like, don't worry about it. Like, if you want to do Lauren in your pajamas. I mean, it hasn't really happened loads, has it?
No.
But I feel like if them days come and she feels a bit crappy,
Yeah.
we're at home, learn in your pajamas and have a shower after.
See, that for me was like a big reason why I did pull Sienna out of school, because every morning just to get her out of the bed and get her to school. And I feel like with the teachers, they don't give you no support. Like if you're late, that's it. She's got detention, whatever. And I'm like she generally won't get out the bed. And I know you can say, oh, like just rip her out the bed, but it's constant,
not that easy.
It's a battle every
100%.
morning
It's
that I've
so
got
draining.
with her.
Yeah.
Whereas sort of like when she don't go to school, it is a lot more relaxed. Like she doesn't lay in bed all day, but she hasn't got to be somewhere at a certain time. And I am quite similar to that, because if I know I had to be somewhere every single day at a certain time, it really stresses me out.
Yeah.
So I think it depends how
that's
you are.
what I mean. But that's how you cope individually.
Yeah.
Like, I'm a bit the same. If it's like regimental, I will just like break down over it.
Monday to Friday. Like
Yeah,
it's a
it's
lot. It's a lot.
It's a lot. Imagine being with, like, when I think back to school now, I think all them people. I mean, some people thrive off of that.
Yeah.
Some people love that every day. Like, there's kids that want to go to school. They thrive off of speaking in front of people, doing like what's it called in the PowerPoint? Oh my God, but they make you do that. Like, I would rather die. And I know Honey would have rather died than had to do a PowerPoint presentation. Like, why?
School was not for me at all.
Why do you have to do that?
I also think that if you're battling to get your child to school, it's about the provision that's at school for them when they get there. Like you say, if it's not suitable when they get there, what's the point in them being there? That's a huge chunk of their childhood that they are then not taking anything from and not benefiting from. And also, if there's not that pastoral support for them when they get there, if you've gone to war with your child to get your child into school that day, they are not going to be in a good position to learn or want to learn.
When she said to me, like, the way the teachers talk to them as well. And obviously, my Sienna, she's not one that is just going to let someone talk to her like that. Yeah, obviously, everyone's different.
Yeah,
but
Honey would.
I've brought her up like that. You do not let someone speak.
I've tried to do that to Honey, but she would just be like, yeah, and then come home.
And she'll be upset over it.
It's like an outpour of like everything that she's dealt with in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'm like, say something.
But I do think like teachers have got to like own some responsibility for it. The way they treat children and the way they talk to them, and you can't have nothing to say back, because they're instantly, the minute she did stand up for herself, they just want her out. So the minute I sort of understood that, and I knew, even me, I would go there and I'd try and talk nice and that to them. I was having that many meetings, but I got that vibe that they didn't like us. They didn't want us there. The minute you're late a few times, which I am quite a lot, they want you gone.
Yeah.
And I, in my experience, like the friends that I've had that their children haven't got well, it's like the minute they've got that eye on one child that is standing up for himself or not obeying the rules all the time, which I know there has got to be some rules in place.
Yeah, of course there has, yeah.
But at the same time, why do they think that they can talk to children like it and they're just going to sit there and not say nothing?
Yeah, but I feel like teachers power trip. And as soon as they get a mother or a child that has got too much to say for themselves, they don't like it.
No.
Because they see themselves as, I mean, a lot, I'm really fortunate, like the school that my kids gone to, the primary school that my kids have gone to, like 99% of them lovely. You come across a couple that are just like, think they're like the hierarchy, like they're up here. But most of them are just normal mums and really loving and want the best for your child. But like I say, it's the system. But you get them teachers at Power Trip and the way they talk to the kids, like, there's things that's going on at the minute with Denny, and he's always been really happy. I don't want to get into it now, but I just think, wow, like, how is this allowed? But at the same time, like, there's this whole thing about modern parenting where we're like too soft with our kids.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's a fine line to tread where your kids need to be disciplined. They need to grow up assertive and respectful. But I feel like the way it's being taught nowadays is just not the right way.
But everyone is sort of opening their eyes to it now, and I feel like it is getting more and more popular, the homeschooling.
Yeah.
I had that many people message me last night over it. So, or they're saying like they're not going to school, but I do think it is, every child is different.
Yeah.
What about your children, Lauren? Will you send them?
I don't think I'll send them to secondary school. I also don't think I'll get any support with that, but you know, that's years away, so we'll roll with it. Generally speaking, at the moment, Nelly, who's my middle child, is happy where she is. Sky, it goes up and down. She struggled recently. I think it's that jump from Key Stage 1 into Key Stage 2. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We'll keep an eye. And then my youngest, and I'm really glad you asked me because he does have some additional needs. I don't know what will happen for him right now because, to be quite honest, as somebody that was in the classroom and out the classroom and have lots of friends still in the profession, I don't think that the support for children with SEND is adequate and will be adequate anytime soon. So
Why do you think that is? Like, what is it?
there's a huge lack of funding.
Yeah, money.
That then obviously impacts resource. You've got a lot more children nowadays that are being diagnosed with all different kinds of difficulties, delays. You know, that I suppose the development in science, what the scientists know about the brain has led to there being more, you know, disorders or learning difficulties being identified.
Modern day life is causing it.
Yeah, because a lot of people will say like speech and language delays are because our children are lazy and they're not made to speak and X, Y, Z. But I think the truth in the matter is that, you know, the NHS is under with it. The government recognise that it's something that needs to be worked on. They know that our disadvantaged pupils, for whatever reason that they're disadvantaged, whether it's disability, whether it's background, whatever it is, they don't perform as well in our schools. But I don't think there's a quick overnight fix for it.
Yeah.
And I think that...
Oh, it seems like such a deep hole.
Yeah, and it's a scary one.
Yeah.
The amount of children that I meet, that I work with, that have additional needs, and I think, how did you cope in a classroom? Like, they'll struggle to cope in a 30-minute lesson with me, but I know that they've got my one-to-one and I can bring them back with those interests, but that would not be possible in a mainstream school.
What are we breeding? Like, I know there's obviously things that do come, like medical sides of things that come before education. But really and truly, what is more important than the next generations coming up? Like, surely to God, we should be putting more money into supporting children coming up. Like, in such a brutal world. What else is, like, I'm not a politician, so I don't know the ins and outs of everything. But I just, from a normal person and a normal mum, I can't see what is more important than, like, the kids, not just my kids, all kids. Like, I think it's sad. Like, when I see kids struggling, even when I drop Tenny to school and there's kids crying, it breaks my heart. And I know their mums have got to go work. And I think,
it's
why?
horrible.
It's brutal. Like, it's so heartbreaking. And, like, I'm thinking, why didn't Trump say he's giving homeless people money? I thought, wow. Like, he's going to, like, support them.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I don't know what we've got in the bank in this country, but surely to God, children should be getting more support.
Yeah.
In whatever way that needs to be.
I can't see that happening in our
No,
country.
never.
No. I think there's a lot to fix, plus ongoing problems that impacts our school. Like, for example, you know, immigration is really high at the moment. So a lot of schools in Kent have got a lot of children that are new to the country, new to the language, and they are being dumped in our schools. And that sounds really horrible. It's not in a racist way, but I couldn't think of anything worse than relocating to a different country and leaving my child or children in a school where they don't speak the language. Like, I don't understand
Yeah, it's so sad.
what parents' thoughts are when they're doing this. But also, I think, again, from my teaching point of view, I think that must be so hard when you're standing at the front of a classroom and you've got a child that's walked into your classroom that doesn't speak any English, because you've got 29 other children in the classroom that are halfway through Harry Potter, for example.
Yeah.
Like, and then you've got a child that can't have a basic conversation.
No. And can't sit still. He's trying to sit on his hands because he's going to jump all over the place otherwise. Like, how much pressure for that teacher? Like, it's too much.
It's a lot.
I want to end it on a bit of like a positive, not so like...
Say that parents are the people that want the best for their child.
Yeah, when the
You
welfare
haven't said
got on
that.
me about their attendance, I shut them down straight away. I was like, do not ring me. I was like, because there is no one on this planet that wants their children educated more than me.
Yeah.
Like, there is no one that wants to protect their children more than me. Please don't come at me.